Living with a mental illness is not an easy task. In fact, it's almost impossible. When dealing with depression and anxiety, even the thought of a social gathering can make you feel physically ill. Well, not physically ill exactly, more like the air starts to get thicker and your throat starts to close in and you start to feel a sudden urge of dread around you. It's not unusual to feel uncomfortable in social situations. For some of us, it comes easy, but for others, we experience excess and unreasonable fear. We get trapped in our insecurities, we become lost to our own self-conscious, too worried about the eyes of others. Kanye West has a quote, "We're all self-conscious, I'm just the first to admit it." And that's true. Everyone struggles with knowing who they are. Most of the time, in order to make others happy, we will pretend to be what they want us to be, not who we truly are. In our short lifetime, we might be lucky enough to find even just one person we feel brave enough to show our true self to, someone that we are willing to become vulnerable to. Much like toothpaste emptying from the tube, once you expose your true feelings, you can't simply just put them back in. Once you put yourself out there, there's no going back. They either accept who you are or someone gets hurt. In the movie Dr. Bird's Advice to Sad Poets, we follow James and his struggle with just this. James has a multitude of problems. After the sudden disappearance of his sister, Jory, James begins to have what he calls blitzkriegs, something he hasn't experienced since he was just a child. Blitzkriegs can be summed up as anxiety attacks. When James deals with these, we too can feel the anxiety that he does. Portrayed by the director in tight shots and rapid cuts, the directors in combination with actor Lucas Sundman do a phenomenal job showing the viewer a peek into the life of dealing with mental illness. James is constantly a victim to his circumstances. We see him freeze when his father strikes his sister. He makes excuses to try to get out of a party. He even tries to end his life after seeing his love interest Sophie talking to her ex-boyfriend. Throughout the entire movie, James allows bad things to happen due to his insecurities. He can't be to blame for this. Most of the blame lies on his illness. If we examine his parents, we can see where those insecurities were rooted. James's mother also deals with depression. She plays mind games with James. She uses guilt as a weapon to manipulate the people around her. She'll also hold information to create unnecessary drama similar to the shows that she watches. James's father is called the Brute for most of the film for a good reason. He's portrayed as a loveless monster. It isn't until near the end of the film that we begin to get a different perspective. The movie allows us to experience things through the eyes of James. We only know what he knows. James uses the camera and the audience almost like a journal. He will reach out and break the fourth wall consistently to let us know his thoughts on situations happening. James sees his father strike Jory before she vanishes. He blamed his father for her disappearance, but we find out that he was actually the one fighting for her. It was their mother that told his sister to leave. This change in perspective makes James see his parents in a different light. His father didn't crush his mother's dreams by making her quit art. She quit on her own, and it was her idea to open up the sushi restaurant that she leaves her husband to run, as she lives in a world of darkness, a world of depression and regret. I believe it's this toxic living environment that is the main cause for James's insecurities. If I told you a flower bloomed in a dark room, would you trust it? Luckily, James is smart enough to see he has a problem, and persistent enough to not only ask for help, but demand it. It's a pretty emotional scene when James finally confronts his parents. You really feel the pain in his father as he finally accepts his son's mental illness.
Want to talk to a stranger? Why? So you can tell them what a brute I am?
No. Because I'm sick.
James, will you please? God, stop saying that. You're not sick. Okay?
If I'm so well, how come I talk to an imaginary bird?
In order to make it in life, those of us who struggle with mental illness need the proper support. Living in the darkness is near impossible, let alone trying to grow in it. Well, unless you're Bane.
You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it.
What are you thinking about?
You're a fucking cliche beauty.
What?